Yes, people. Welcome back to GNA TV. I hope you are all well, wherever it is you may be in the world. I'm your host, Jem. Let's cue the intro.
I don't know how I'm here, and it's you that I want and need. Feel your heartbeat, feel somewhere you're looking good. Feel your heartbeat, feel somewhere you're looking good.
Yes, people. Welcome back to GNA TV. Hope you are all well. So, we've got a brand new show today. Something that we've decided to do a little bit differently. We're going to talk about Premier League. We're going to talk about anything out of the Premier League. We're going to talk about strategies. We're going to talk about different kind of topics. So it's going to be an interesting one. And the fellow that's coming to join me, he's known as the Euro expert on Twitter. A very, very knowledgeable person. I've been looking forward to having him on here and actually going and delving into this stuff as well. He goes by the name Alex, and we will welcome him now. Alex.
Hi,
how you doing, bro?
I'm good. Happy to be here. And what an intro that was. I feel my ego's gone up a bit there. That was brilliant.
I try and I try and make people feel good before they come on, and let the viewers know about it and stuff as well. But yeah, Alex, just to let the viewers know, mate, who are you and what are you about? Give them a little bit about you. Who are you, bro?
That's a good question. I guess I'll do it briefly. About a year ago, I was getting into football, but I wanted to be doing it more professionally, more full time, as I imagine many people do at home, and decided to watch as many games as possible, write as many notes of them as possible. This season alone, I've got over 24,000 words of notes on Premier League matches. That spans across 5-6 leagues, and that it's totals over 100,000 words of notes. My idea is, I guess, in general, is to try and give people as much research and knowledge as possible. I don't like the bland takes. I like the research takes.
Yeah. And look, I'm looking forward to delving into your knowledge and actually understanding, what it is and how you feel about certain situations. So it's definitely going to be an interesting one. Shall we start on Chelsea and Frank Lampard? What have you made of Chelsea so far in terms of the season, and how do you feel Frank Lampard's sort of performed up to now as a manager under Chelsea?
So Chelsea are quite interesting, right? They're about 6 points off of fourth, which isn't too bad. They've scored the third most goals in the Premier League. I believe they've conceded the fourth least. So people tend to have an idea their defense is really leaky. Their defense has been quality. So on the face of it, they've been really good. But you've got one contingent, but it's generalised, I guess. You've got the middle, and then you've got one contingent of people who are die-hard Lampard in, and you've got the other contingent who they hate the man. They completely despise him. Like everything he does, and when it's criticised. For me, I think he deserves some time. Definitely till the end of the season at the bare minimum. But he definitely deserves some criticism, which I think can be hard to quantify, because like I said, on the surface it looks really good. They had that great unbeaten run. And then I guess you could say 5 losses, and then all of a sudden everyone hates him. But I feel there's been a few problems brewing under the surface, I think.
Yeah, look, and at the end of the day, he was given a lot of money to go and buy individual players. Whether all the players were his choice or ball choices is yet to be seen. But one thing I would say is that he hasn't got the experience. Yeah, and he's been given this opportunity to manage what I would call top players, not world-class players, top players. And he's bound to make mistakes. And I did say this to people. I said that he will go like that, but he will also go like that. It's never going to be steady with him because he's still learning himself, So I feel like we just either need to back him and give him time, or we just need to do the old Chelsea philosophy and just kick him out the door, which is what Roman will usually do, wouldn't he? Let's be serious. If you look at our history in the past, we don't waste time with managers. What would you think? What do you think Chelsea as a club are doing with him this season? Do you think they will give him the time, or do you think Roman Abramovich is thinking differently to it?
I think they have to give him the time. So you mentioned about the players that has whether he's choice or not. I can actually share a bit of info on that. So Timo Werner was not a player he wanted. He was actually really after Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. he was specifically after him, and Marina Graovskaya turned to him after speaking to the scouting department and said, "Look, we can get Timo Werner for 50 million. He's younger than Aubameyang. We believe he can provide the same sort of output. We're going to overrule you and purchase him." And then on the complete flip side, this was less confirmed. The Timo Werner thing's pretty much fact, but Lampard was really in for Kai Havertz. He was from about June. You can find reports of Chelsea being linked heavily with him. Lampard was fully in for him, and the Chelsea board were actually they were less optimistic just purely because they wanted to spend money in different areas like goalkeeper and play positions like that. So they to say it was harmonious is like, clearly there was disagreements, but they were still going into the season very brightly, as you had spent so much money. I think, as you were saying, I think you've nailed it there with Chelsea and Lampard. It's 1 minute it's up here and the next minute it's down there. There's never an in-between. It's a bit like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Yeah. I guess, and what you said was well about the experiences, that's where I come from. So I think with Chelsea, they made quite a big change. If you said to them, would you like to hire a manager who's had one previous year's experience, whatever club it's at, even if it's at Derby, it doesn't matter. If you have one previous year's experience, will you hire him to demand top four football? You'd think they would usually go absolutely not. But the Frank Lampard appointment was clearly a point to unite the fan base. And I guess for me, I think, like you said, he is still learning. He's clearly got much to learn. And I think a good example of that, not to waffle on too much, is substitutions. So last season when I was watching Chelsea, the one main criticism I had of him was substitutions. Do you know, in lockdown, it took about 6 games for him to make 5 Premier League subs. In the third game against West Ham, when Chelsea were tying 2-2, he brought on Giroud and I believe Hudson-Odoi, and then he didn't make any changes until the 87th minute. And you kind of think in that time, what you do, you could change the game. Whereas this season, he's massively improved. He's making decisions a lot quicker. So he is clearly learning. To answer the fans who are saying Lampard is awful, he will be always awful, he's terrible, that's wrong. He has improved. But if you were to say he's not the manager now that could win a league, I sort of agree with that. What do you think?
I think one of the things that's been brought up, and it's, I mean, I don't know how big you are with stats, but there's a lot of Chelsea fans that look at stats and they believe that stats are what tells the truth. And I don't believe that's always the case with things. But at the moment, Frank Lampard's the worst Chelsea manager in terms of win concession rate in the history of managers that we've ever had. He's at the bottom, so he's lower than AVB. But for me, that can change, because what happens if he goes on the next 5-6 games with a win? It pulls him back up. Do you know what I mean? So people are saying, well, he's not good enough because he's rock bottom when it comes to managers and their win conversions. But I'm sorry, he's not even finished the season yet. Still 21 games to play, so I do get that there's a lot of people out there that just don't think he's the man to win this title, and that's cool. People can have their opinions if they believe that he can win or not, but at the end of the day, if he's going to be here and the board are going to keep him here, then I just think that as fans, we should back him. You've got to show back in. And look what happened with Ollie. Ollie's a good example, because when he first came to Man United in his first season, I remember when he got to January, where we are now, first half of the season, they were screaming out. He couldn't get the best out of the players. Pogba was poor. This was poor. Maguire's crap. Whatever. And it's all Ollie's fault, And all of a sudden, now look at them. They're sitting top of the league, 10 points ahead of Chelsea. Why? Because they stuck by him. He might, stay up there for God knows how long, but then it may drop down to 5th. Like you said, there will be that sort of up and down roll with these managers because they're inexperienced. Arteta, Ollie, and Lampard, you're going to get these issues. But Gio's just sent us over a quick comment. Says, "What's up, Jim? Looks like Tomori's deal's edging closer. He will get the game time. We have a lot of injuries and 2 centre-backs are leaving this window." I mean, much do you know about? It's clear that Lampard doesn't trust Tomori for whatever reasons. There's been talks of him going out on loan this month. Do you think it's a good thing for him, or?
I hope it's a loan, because I think Tomori is really talented. What I've noticed with Tomori is that when he's played, he's usually gone on a good run, and he'll make one error and then he'll be benched for a really long time. But it almost feels like something personal has gone down there, just because like even in the FA Cup fixture against Morecambe, Tomori was on the bench, and I get you want to give minutes to Rudiger and Christensen, but if
Yeah.
you're going to give minutes to Tomori, especially after the trust for large parts he was showed last season,
Yeah.
it feels almost targeted. Like why are you not giving him at least some minutes? I mean,
minutes.
yeah, I think it's harsh, but
It is, and I think Lampard's got a big problem, and it's a good problem to have because we've just got squad depth. And if you look across the pitch, there's players competing for positions everywhere, you know. So it's mad. But yeah, it's Charles here. We've got a guy called Charles who's usually in the chat, and he thinks Spurs are going to win the quadruple this year. So yeah, we ignore that one.
it's a
Yeah,
bold
I mean,
opinion.
looking at Chelsea over the last 6 to 7 games, obviously they've lost a lot of them, drawn some, I think one against West Ham. Do you think it's to do with maybe the way we're setting up? Are we not getting the best out of the signings that we brought in, the Werners, the Havertz, or what would you do with the formation? Would you change anything? Or...
Okay. First of all, I do want to. So I am usually a stats person, but I think you're going to align with me more in terms of they can be used out of context. For example, that points per game thing you brought up, which I was touching this. Points per game you brought up. Lampard is bottom, but Avram Grant had half a season. So to put it beneath them is such a small sample size. So it doesn't tell the full story. But I think in regards to Lampard's utilizations of the players, as you said, Werner perhaps wasn't his signing. Havertz was. And I think that's what's probably frustrated fans the most. He's been played on the wing at times and deep in the field, and he's never really looked comfortable. I think I would like to see Havertz played up front with Werner or Tammy Abraham with Werner. I mean, I watched the Chelsea v Morecambe game recently, and there was because Chelsea were obviously so heavy in the attack, Havertz was able to push up front at times from midfield, and there was a key point in the game for Werner's goal. Havertz had pushed; he was the furthest man forward. The cross came in. Havertz managed to head straight back across to Werner, who was also in the striking position, and score.
Mm.
And I think with one up front, you don't really get that. But I think formation's a hard way to criticize Lampard. He's been given no preseason. I think the alarming thing for me is chemistry.
Yeah.
I don't think so. There's one moment I'm going to bring to you and the viewers. There was a point in the Chelsea City game. It was about 75 minutes in. Rodri had broken through midfield, and Timo Werner was chasing him back, and Rodri took a heavy touch.
Yeah.
And Werner's chased him down, and then there's Kante, and I believe it might be Jorginho, Kovacic, maybe Gilmore. They're very passive, and Werner just stops and screams at them, like, "Why are you not pressing him? Like, we could have won the ball here." And I think within Chelsea's press, which I won't go into too heavily, and I think with their forward play, there's a clear lack of, like, there doesn't seem to be many patterns of movement in terms of Werner.
It's very static, isn't it? I think is the word for that.
There was one thing I was just going to bring quickly. You said static is a perfect thing. Jem, you may be shocked to know that in terms of dribbles per game that have led to a shot, I know we're talking about stats, but dribbles game that have led to a shot. So this is how many times that you can imagine it, a player breaking through the lines, passing in or shooting. Chelsea have done that less times this season than Sheffield United and 16 other Premier League clubs. So it almost feels, so when you say static, you're spot on. Yeah.
I bang on about it constantly, and because I'm very into formations. One of the shows that I want to do on here is actually a formation breakdown and strategy, just to go through it, and I'm very into it. And when I watch Chelsea play the 4-3-3, it's very important that your 2-8s are not static, that they're always making runs behind your striker, dragging players out of position. If there's a pocket that they should be driving into, run into it. If they're going to just keep coming to the ball, if the defence has got the ball and they're going to keep coming to it and turn around, do a sideways pass, and then run to that position that that they've just passed the ball, you're not creating enough movement. What you're doing is you're making it very easy for the defensive team to be organised, because they can see you. You're not going anywhere. You're there in front of them. One of the things that's stressing me out with that, especially with Havertz and Man, is that they do that too much. When I watched Morecambe in the first half, we were so static. It was poor, and we was playing against an absolute shocking team, and we couldn't even break them down. And we got into the second half, and they were the complete opposite. They were finding the gaps, they were running into it, they were getting the ball, turning, driving. There's a lot that needs to be, and this is why I keep going on about, because people go, well, that's Lampard's fault, but it's not just that. It's players' lack of game knowledge as well, and in them positions, because Havertz is known as a number 10 for Leverkusen. Now he's being asked to do an 8 job. Doing an 8 job means getting forward, but also getting back and covering spaces, because you can't leave Kante isolated on his own. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like it's just a teething problem. I feel like we just need to give him a bit of time just to get into it. And I always say it to people, training and playing is 2 different things. People go, what's he doing in training? He should be doing that on the pitch. It's different. It's completely different,
Yeah, you're spot on with that bit, especially. Like you'll probably remember Ruben Loftus-Cheek before the lockdown period ended. Lampard watched him in a preseason behind the closed doors match, said he was absolutely superb, and then he played him in the game and he looked completely out of it. So yeah, you're right about the training thing. But I think sorry, were you about to read the guy's comment there?
Well, what did he say? I think Lampard's building a great team. Let him build it, and can't wait to win the league with it within the next 2 years or 3. Then look for a new one. But I can't see him lasting that long. Sadly, we don't keep managers for that. I mean, he's got a point, isn't he? Do you want to answer that, Alex?
Yeah, sure. Right. I think what people might say to that, and I guess my thing is that I think that is a possible outcome, and don't mean that in like a muggy way. I don't mean it's a 1% chance. That could very much well happen. But I guess the only person who knows how qualified Frank Lampard is for the job is Frank Lampard. We can't see him behind the scenes after a game where, let's say against City, where even he admitted he got it completely wrong. We can't see him after the game saying, okay, what did I get wrong? Was it this? Was it that? It was this. We don't know how qualified he is. But to answer your question a minute ago about like you said, the staticity in the 8s, like Havertz and Mount not creating the spaces against Morecambe. I think it is a fault of the players and Frank Lampard in terms of it. Not even Lampard. I'm not going to battle all of that on him. I think that's a bit mean. Lampard and his coaching staff, they should be coaching their players in ways where they can know which moves they're going to make, so they can pass the ball to a player almost before he's made a run, right?
Yeah.
But I think what's happened with Chelsea, they're lacking so much confidence that they're almost quite scared to take players on. This is why everyone loves Hudson-Odoi at the moment, because when he comes on, he's charging straight at his fullback. It's one of the main things he does, and it just all of a sudden it creates the opposition's panic. They look at it and go, well, okay, he's charging past me, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I agree. 20 viewers tuned in with us right now. So it's good to have you all in at this time. One of the things I wanted to just touch on quickly as well is obviously signings. And obviously there's a lot of talk about Declan Rice. And I don't really look into the Haaland one too much, because even though if he is available for so cheap, I just can't imagine it just being Chelsea. I can imagine all the top teams in the world wanting someone like Haaland. Who do you think? Do you think Declan Rice would be good for Chelsea, or do you think there's other players out there that could be a better option if we need players?
It's a good question. I agree with you, the Haaland thing. I think that's it's a pipe dream. But Declan Rice, he seems quite nailed on. He keeps, the fans saying, twerking for Chelsea. He keeps putting these little hints up. I love Frank Lampard as this. Mason Mount's my best friend, etc. I think he would be a good signing. And I think, like you said, you've touched on Chelsea's depth. They shouldn't really be making more signings, like any massive amount of signings, because you've got such a deep squad. You need to shed wood. But I think Declan Rice is a perfectly capable defensive midfielder. What I want to see from him, I guess, is how much ground he can cover a bit more when he's loaned back. Because at West Ham, he plays in the deep setups. He's always got players back to help him. But with, like you've touched on with Kante, Kante is very much holding back the sea when he's in midfield. It's him beat the other team. And you kind of want to see Rice in that situation to see how he would handle it. Because if he can't handle it well straight away, and let's say Kante gets injured, Chelsea could be in big trouble. So you want to see that side of his game. But he's a quality player, I think.
Oh, of course he is. He is. He's definitely a very good player. Strip Bear's in the house. Big up to her. And she's right. Smash the like button, please, people, guys. Smash the like, retweet, share. Let's get it out there. We appreciate all your viewers' support so far. And yeah, we move on. But just going through some of these comments because I'm so behind and there's so many. I don't want to miss any important ones. I think they were just arguing between each other mainly by the looks of it. 16 watching, fire that, smash the like button. Yeah, let's keep doing that, people. Where are we going now? We got a London. We got a Arsenal fan in the group, so he's obviously coming at the Chelsea boys at the moment with his comments. So London is red, who we support massively. It's good to have you on here as well, bro. Tuning in. Moving on to rival clubs. Obviously the Man United's. I want to touch on Man United and Arsenal more so to start with. Let's start with Man United. How do you feel they've done so far, and how, do you feel like with Ollie, it's gonna get to the point where he's gonna drop off soon, or do you think he can continue it because he's got the quality players that he needs within a squad to go on and challenge?
I think with Ollie, personally, I think he's actually done a good job. But then again, anyone who praises Ole Gunnar Solskjaer should have their opinion skewed by Bruno Fernandes. Fans can banter him as much as you want, but when Sporting inserted that Ballon d'Or clause in the contracts and said, if he wins a Ballon d'Or, you'll pay this money, pretty clear to see why. He is unreal. And I think he's dragged United through a lot of games. There's been, Southampton, I believe, a few weeks ago, I think it was Southampton, where United looked a little down and out in attack. Bruno all of a sudden produces magic. But I think United could actually... I actually feel a bit bullish about United. I mean, I think they can go on and at least finish second. And it would take a lot to finish top because Liverpool are a great team and City are on an amazing run. Yeah. But you did touch on last season, there was quite a big negative vibe about Man United, especially by January. There was lots of things of Ollie should leave. The performances were really dull. But he did manage to grind out enough results to eventually support their season. Yeah. And I think Ollie's United has been quite consistent. You think about the start of the season, it looked doom and gloom when they lost 6-1 to Tottenham. Ever since then, I believe in the last 10 games, they've won 8, which is one of the best records. It's the best record in the Premier League of the last 10 games, better than City, better than Liverpool. So I feel quite bullish about them, but you never know. We all know what happened in that first season when they're going to get top 4 and fell off.
It's so unpredictable at the moment, and that's the thing. And I wouldn't like to call the league this season. I wouldn't even like to call the top 4 or even the top 6 because the Evertons, the Leicesters, the Southamptons, the Aston Villas, they look good. They all look decent, and they're giving teams like Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, United. They're giving us all problems, So it's going to be an interesting one. Johnny Boy Blues in the house. Shout out Gem and Euro Expert. What's the best formation for Havertz, and how can you build a team around him, Alex?
Okay. That's a great question. Thanks for sending that in, Johnny Boy Blue. I have got a pretty clear idea in my head. I guess it's based from... I've watched a lot of Ligue 1 and PSG from last season, and Thomas Tuchel implemented a 4-2-2. And Havertz would play the sort of role Cavani would play. So what Havertz is really good at is clearly in the final third. When he plays deep, he looks very uncomfortable. And like you said, going backwards and forwards can look quite uncomfortable. He clearly likes to be further forward, at least in a 10 position. My idea was basically I would have Havertz. Havertz up front in a position where he can drop deep to collect the ball or push forward. Werner next to him, so he can run beyond him, and that way Werner hasn't always got 2 defenders on him. He'll have a bit more space to work with. On the wings, you have Hudson-Odoi / Pulisic and Ziyech. That way they can come centrally and. They can come centrally, receive the ball, or they can stay wide. They have a bit more space to work with. Then you'd have Conte and Kovacic at defensive midfield. It would be bold because you'd imagine against teams like City, Liverpool, they'd be licking their lips to seeing how they can exploit just 2 defensive midfielders. But a few teams have made it work across Europe. I believe Lille and PSG made it work. PSG in the Champions League did. They just revert into a 4-4-2 whenever they were under pressure. So... With regimented coaching, it can work, and I tell you what, it remains to be seen if Lampard's bold enough to do that. I think it's definitely. I don't think this is like news to Lampard. It's probably in one of his plans he'd like to try out, but I guess we'll have to wait and see with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think with Lampard, it's all just about waiting, isn't it, and seeing, and whether, and if he needs to make the right decisions. I feel like there's certain things he needs to change. I don't like seeing Timo Werner on the wing. At the same time, I think Werner is a striker. The only problem with playing him up front on his own is that he can get isolated. And I think Timo Werner would probably work it'd work better if he had someone to run off, if he had someone supporting. Like when he was at Leipzig, he always had the Poulsen, someone that he could sort of link up with, and it worked. And that's why he was so good. And we've got that. You've got Olivier Giroud, someone that's very good at holding it, probably one of the best at holding the ball up in the league, laying off people, getting other people involved across the pitch. So I think it's going to be it's all questions that we still need to be answered. Johnny Boy Blue says again, based on your answer, Alex, is Tuchel the answer if Lampard goes? I mean, if Lampard does go, let's just say he does get sacked and he's out the door, who would you think's best equipped to come in and get this Chelsea team ticking, looking at the players we've got?
Current availability, if it's a free agent who can come straight in, it is Thomas Tuchel. I've seen a lot of people say Julian Nagelsmann. Yeah. I think he'd reject us, not because that's not something to be memed of. Chelsea a small club. A little known fact: Julian Nagelsmann, before he joined RB Leipzig, was contacted by Real Madrid. He was contacted by Florentino Perez and said, "We would like you to come right now and manage Real Madrid." And he said no, because I'm 30 years old. I want to quit managing when I'm 50. I've got 20 years ahead of me. Why would I go to the biggest club now when I'm not ready? So I think in his head, he's got some stepping stones. And I think that kills the Nagelsmann thing. So the Tuchel idea, just briefly, there is the worry that he can't get along with the board. I think anyone who falls out with the Borussia Dortmund board definitely needs to be questioned about that. But based on coaching alone, based on his performances, he's got out of his team alone, Thomas Tuchel.
Good answer. Someone just said Jose Mourinho. Nah, I'm done with that, mate. Well, you don't want him back the third time. I mean, he's having problems with Spurs at the moment, especially after the game yesterday. I think Mourinho's. Let's talk about Tottenham just very quickly. But I think with Mourinho, I think that his system and his style's kind of dried up, and he seems to think that he can. I watched the Fulham game yesterday, and they're winning 1-0. Now they're winning 1-0, and they've got Son and Kane, who are in absolute amazing form at the moment. And they're defending the second half against Fulham, and they literally got their they took a massive step back, and they're providing pressure on, and they're trying to just play a bit of counter. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you're playing Fulham, you're Spurs, and you're defending like as if you're playing Barcelona. And to be honest, Fulham deserved their goal. I knew it was coming, I could tell, and they got their goal and they deserved it. And I feel like with Mourinho, there's no plan B. And they're very heavily reliant on Kane and Son because no one else scores goals in that Tottenham squad. So I think he's going to struggle. I know they got to a final. I think for Spurs, I think they just want to win something. I think they'll just be happy to win something, to be honest. But yeah, I don't see him being there that long. I don't know what you think about Spurs as an overall. What do you feel?
I kind of agree with you. I don't want to take the credit for this sort of mindset, but if anyone was a fan of Football Daily, they might have seen Patrick Van Straten, the host, come up with a really good outlook. About 10-15 years ago, the Premier League was so weak that Mourinho could afford to drag out a draw or a low win against Fulham because he could steamroll other teams in the league. The league is now so even that if he does that against every team, he's just going to get so many draws and it will drag down. So yeah, in terms of outdated, I think his mindset of I will be pragmatic and get 1-0 wins or 1-1 draws, it doesn't matter. I'll counter-attack every team if I have to. You can't really do that anymore and win a league. You can probably do it in the cup, but for a league, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, I agree, and it's I just hope they don't go finish above us. To be honest, I can't have Spurs finish above Chelsea. I think Chelsea need to get Champions League football this season. To be honest, I feel like if Lampard doesn't do that, then I feel like he'll be chucked out the door. To be honest, but moving on to Arsenal, they've been up and down, haven't they? Let's be serious. They were fighting relegation at one point. They're now, for 3 on a row, I think. They've won 3 on a row. They've got Crystal Palace tonight. Do you feel like with them, again, it's the same issue of the roller coaster with Arteta, where they're going to win games like they have been, but then they're probably going to draw and lose and drop? Or
I think we've touched on the fact that Lampard, that he's going to make mistakes. Arteta even more. This is Arteta's first managerial job. You could say he's worked as assistant under Pep. That's nothing like managing Arsenal Football Club. So he's going to be making even more mistakes, some that Lampard might have already made. He may end up being he may end up being the best manager in the world. We don't know, but
Yeah.
you're right. They're very up and down. They started the season really well. Then they went on a barren spell of about, I think it was like 2 points in 8 games, and then they've won their last 3. So it's hard to see. I think with Arsenal as well, one of the main things that I think that's held them back over the years and will continue to, unless they sort it out, is their scouting and transfers. I think you yourself, Jem, when they bought Willian, you were probably laughing your head off because
definitely, yes.
I don't know why you to get him. And I think Arsenal, you can't blame Arteta for everything. At the start of the season, I think there was 2 people involved in scouting at Arsenal. They decimated their entire recruitment department because of lack of funds. I think their sporting director was handling their contracts, or their chairman was handling their contracts, when they should have a own person for it. So they've been a bit of a mess of a club. So I don't actually blame Arteta too much for everything, but he will make mistakes.
Yeah, and I agree. Just want to touch on the Liverpool really, just quickly as well. Obviously they're the champions. Last season around this time, I believe they were 20 points ahead of everyone else at the time. They ended up running away with it with 33 points of difference between us and them. I think it was something ridiculous, but they seem to be struggling this year. Obviously Van Dijk's been injured, and that's a big loss for them. They didn't strengthen as champions in certain positions. Do you still think they can run off and win the league? Are you still confident in them responding and winning the title, or who do you think is going to win it? That's my question. Who do you think is going to win it?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. See, with Liverpool, it's easy to blame their injuries, but I think it's not as simple as all their players coming back and they get better. There's a Liverpool fan who DMs me regularly asking for analysis. I believe his name's Chingzino on Twitter, so he's a top guy. But I remember after the Southampton game, my instinct was, I'll be fine. You'll still do all right. And he said, no, Alex, this is happening every game. And it kind of is in terms of a bit like Chelsea, where they meet a deep block and they kind of get stumped. I remember last season, the common thing was just a nice little insight. If you're watching a game last season, Jordan Henderson would move out wide and Trent Alexander would move inside. So Trent was almost like an attacking midfielder. Recently against Southampton, sometimes it was him and Robertson both on the halfway line. So they've almost lost their identity a little. I think it's been disrupted. So in terms of winning the league, I guess I'll keep it. I'll give you one. I'll just say, I think Manchester City. I think they're solid. Yeah, they're rebuilding. I think they're going for it. Yeah.
The thing with Man City is they've been very poor at the beginning of the season, and people say, "Nah, they're dumb. This, that, and the other. They're not going to do it." And they've sort of picked up again. They're at their 4th final with the Carabao Cup. If they win it, is it the 4th time or 3rd time? I think it's the 4th, isn't it? If they win it again this season, if I remember.
So, yeah.
They're in the FA Cup. They've got games in hand in the Premier League, which could put them second, depending on what happens with the Man United and Liverpool game, which is on the weekend as well. So you can't underestimate them. I still think they're going to run it. I think they will win it. I think people are not really thinking about them too much, but they've got too much quality, not to still go. I know Aguero's not playing. I don't think they've sort of changed or replaced this core of their team, which is hard to do anyway, with Aguero, Company, Toure, all the way down. So I feel like you can't underestimate them. They've got Kevin De Bruyne, they've got Sterling, they've got people that can hurt you and be an issue. And I totally agree with you in terms of Man City going away and winning this. I think. Yeah,
it reminds me of 2014-15 when of 2013-14 where Liverpool were almost running away with it. And they were saying, "Oh, Liverpool can do this romantic victory," and Chelsea are in there as well. And it's like Chelsea could pip them. And this season, it seems like the Chelsea and Liverpool, United and Tottenham. And in both seasons, City were quietly going under the surface, building their points, and then they won it. Exactly.
And it's we'll just have to see. It's going to be such an interesting one. I'm looking forward to seeing who runs away with it and that. But talking about players outside of the Premier League,
yes.
Obviously, I know that you you know quite a lot in is it the French league and the Dutch league? You do quite a lot of research on these leagues as well. If you're talking about the top six, what one player would you individualize with each team who you think could come in and actually solve their issues? So we'll start with Chelsea, for example. Who do you think would be good for Chelsea?
Oh, that's a great question. I do have a list of players to the side. In terms of top six clubs, okay, so with Chelsea, I've said Rice is probably the best option. Let's imagine Rice can't come. They need a DM. I think that a good player for Chelsea would probably be it depends. Okay, I'm going to say that if they can't get Rice this season, they need a different option. Benjamin Andre of Lille, he'd be superb. He's used to covering all of the midfield on his own, putting in loads of tackles, interceptions, very much like Conte. He'd be great at that. I'm going to touch on Liverpool. I think there's a much clearer player there. They've been linked to him. It's Sven Botman from Lille. You might have heard of him, I imagine, yeah?
No?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Botman was 20 years old at Ajax. He weren't getting any minutes. And unlike Frankie de Jong and De Ligt, he seemed like one player who's probably going to see his career fade out. He's moved to Lille this season, and he's been probably player of the year. And all of the French media are calling it, all the Dutch media are calling it. He's a bit like, he's almost like a John Terry in terms of physicality. He wins about 75% of his aerial duels, which is more than Van Dijk this season, I think, and more than any Chelsea player. And he wins over 80% of his tackles, which again profiles very similarly to Van Dijk. He's a wall to go past. He's 6'2" as well. But then his passing ability, his passes are absolutely superb. He reminds me a lot like Van Dijk in terms of the balls he can put it behind, but also Christensen for Chelsea when he's on a good game. You can imagine, can remember the times where all of a sudden he'll do a line breaking pass. So I think Botman will be good there, and I think it's hard to think off the top of my head for other teams. I will touch on as well, if there's any Manchester United fans in the chat, you've probably seen that you've been linked with Boubakary Soumaré, again another Lille player. We'll go out of there. To be honest, with Soumaré, he's been touted as a Matic replacement. I really would. There's no other better way to put it. I would laugh if United brought him in for him because he's not ready for the Premier League. I think if they got Soumaré in, big waste of money. You could get Renato Sanchez, anyone out of France or Holland, and just to go in a grander scale in terms of, there's probably been a lot of noise out of France and the rest of Europe in terms of money. In France at the moment, it's a bit like a fire sale. Literally, if you remember in Call of Duty Zombies, you get a ray gun for $1. It's like that in France. It's literally what's happened is imagine Sky Sports said we're going to pay the Premier League £5 billion. COVID-19 happened, and they went, no, I'm all right. I'm not paying that. Someone else, and then BT come along and say, all right, we'll pay $2 billion, and then they realise they're the only people going for it, and they say, actually, we'll pay you 100,000. And then every French club is going, we're literally going to lose. I think there's clubs that are saying we will lose £80 million this season. We could go bust. So, it's in France, it's a place to look. And the same in Holland. Holland and Belgium cut their seasons early, a bit like France, which really really took their finances down. They made their seasons null and void. So there's players there. I think, I tell you what, actually, Man United is a player. There's a player at Ajax called Anthony. He's a Brazilian who's 21 years old. He's written a book. He's good friends with Lucas Moura. He is outstanding. If United or any Premier League team were to pick him up, I think he'd be absolutely brilliant.
It sounds pretty interesting, mate. It's pretty interesting. Real Chris asks, what team does Alex support?
All right, I'll give you the story that I gave John before we called. I grew up as a Chelsea fan, and then I kind of realised as I got older, I was less emotionally attached to the club and just more interested. So, I guess in the last couple of years, especially since the Sarri days, I think that put me. I looked at a lot of the fan base's divide, and I was kind of like, I don't really fall inside of these categories. I don't really support a team. I prefer to stay a bit more neutral. So and I guess with that aspect, you won't find me. It's rude to say that any player who supports any person who supports a team gets an agenda. Like Jem, you're a Chelsea fan, but your knowledge is clearly extremely good and very neutral based. So it's wrong to say that, but I mean, personally, I like to be a bit neutral and not. If you come to me, I guess you listen to me. I try and add as little bias to my opinions as possible. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it, and it's really good to actually have you on and really delve into, you know, the what I call the grounded stuff, if you know what I mean. So it's interesting to really learn your knowledge and understand. I mean, just to quickly tie up on one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Is there any players out of the Premier League that we should be watching out for? I know you mentioned Soumaré Santiago, but is there any young talents or people across the Dutch league or the French league that you would say?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you a few. Right, I'll quickly fire through them. So if there's any team looking for a defensive midfielder, we touched on United for Matic, maybe Arsenal looking for them. They should look at Pablo Rosario from PSV. He's about 6'2" or 3. He's very good on the ball, really strong in the tackle. He dominated Ajax at the weekend. He looks like he's going to lead PSV to a title. Another player, Jeremy Doku. He's moved from Belgium to Rennes in France, or Rennes. He's learning his trade. He's not quite the finished article yet, but I believe he's just turned 20 years old. He's one of the most touted players across Europe. Someone to really look an eye out for him. Yeah. Across other leagues, I'll hit a bit closer to home. Jem, do you remember a Chelsea youngster called Ike Ugbu?
No.
No, he was a striker who was he's just turned 21 years old. At the time Tammy Abraham was breaking through at Bristol, he was in and around the Championship and he was doing okay. Ugbu's playing for a club called Cercle de Brugge in Belgium, which is a satellite club of Monaco. He's having a really strong season, and honestly, he looks like he might not challenge for a Tammy Abraham or Giroud or Werner Chelsea spot, but Chelsea can probably Chelsea can make a lot of money off of him. Shall I feed you one more, I guess?
Go on, give us one more.
Okay, another player as well. I'll quickly fire him off. You've got Armando Broja at Vitesse, also a Chelsea striker. He's having a decent season. He's really good in and around the box. Yeah. You also have, there's a player at Marseille, a young Brazilian winger called Kyle Enrique. He's made a couple of starts in the Champions League after Marseille had arguably the worst Champions League campaign for a big club. Yeah, they've been awful. There's also another winger in Belgium who's played in the Champions League called Crepin Diatta, plays at Club Brugge. He's had links to Arsenal and United, I believe, in the last couple of years. 21-year-old winger, really confident on the ball, likes a long shot, which he probably wants to iron out of his game. But a really good dribbler, and he's quite tall as well, so he's good on the ball there. But I guess that's mainly the main ones.
The ones, yeah. No, it's good to know, and I love talking about players that we don't know about. Do you know what I mean? Because it's easy to sit here and talk about the common individuals and go on and about them, but it's also good to know about the young prospects that are maybe coming up and be the new Werner, Messi, or whatever. You just don't know, do you? Do you know what I mean? So it's interesting to always know. Alex Howes says, "Big up Barker." I'm assuming he knows you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I know the guy. Hello, Alex.
Yeah, cool. I mean, Alex, you touched on quite a lot, to be honest, mate. It's been a really, really good show. And I just wanted to know if there's anything else that you would like to share with everyone that we've got here at the moment in terms of knowledge. I'll just say a couple of things. I think you mentioned Tottenham losing to Fulham earlier. I'll give you a couple of big calls. I think Newcastle are in danger of getting relegated. Fulham, I think, are going to stay up. They're a great team. PSG, I don't think they're going to win the league under Pochettino. Tell you what, I guess why I think because you've got Lyon and Lille chasing them. Actually, I should clarify. I don't think Poch going to win the league at PSG this season. Next season, 100%. But PSG are in a bit of a pitfall right now, and Lyon and Lille have really got momentum with them, and they're running under the idea of they're running the idea that this season the end of this summer they're going to lose all their players because of the aforementioned crisis in France. They're going to lose Depay and everyone. So I think within their clubs they've kind of thought, this is our season. This might be the last season we get for a decade.
we need
Yeah.
to win this league, and they've got a really good positive atmosphere around them. So yeah,
Cool.
yeah, I guess that's all my
Good man.
hot takes. Yeah.
Well, I've got one more. Well, one of the viewers has got a question for you, Alex.
Oh.
What are your thoughts on Boali Dia from Reims?
Yeah. A lot of West Ham fans have been contacting me about this. He's a striker at Reims in France. He's been heavily linked to West Ham for 15 million euros. For a club that's really struggled with their striking department, like the best player they got was Allah, and then they played him in basically the wrong system. If they got Boulaye Dia in from Reims, he would be a really good player, in my opinion. I don't want to put a bet on it because West Ham, it's about as predictable as a lottery if they're going to have a good season or not. I had the bottom of the league for this year's prediction. They're the only team in my predictions who've gone awful. But Dia's a really physically imposing striker, not as much as Antonio, but his great thing is he's just superb in and around the box. He plays for a team that a bit like West Ham. They've received no percent of the ball. He's the top scorer in France, available at a cheap price. So if West Ham do get him, which looks likely because all the media outlets are calling it, West Ham are like an open book with their transfers. So you'll know when they're getting him. If West Ham do get Dia, I think you West Ham fans should be really excited. You've got actually a good player.
Lanzi is a West Ham fan, as you probably noticed. He's probably our only West Ham fan on it, actually, to be fair. I can't think of any others, to be fair. Jeremy, you're going to have to go back. But yeah, I mean, Alex can answer that quickly for you. Go on, Alex. Can answer that?
Yeah, I'll answer a bit less mean. I assume you might be a Manchester United fan. I think
he is.
Yeah. I think if United sign Samari, they're probably making a big mistake because they seem to be wanting a Matic replacement. Samari plays a Lille. He's not the third best midfielder in France. He's not the third best midfielder at the club. He's barely been getting a minute. He's nothing like Matic. He tries to aim a bit more forward balls. He's as well. He misplaces a ton of his passes. The only outcome I can see of him going to United, unless they keep him back for a year or two and build him up, is a really, really frustrating player that the fans will hate within a few days. A bit like when Bakayoko moved to Chelsea and made a lot of fraud mistakes.
Shocking. That was absolutely shocking. He was, and the thing is, he had a very good season at Monaco, and he was he had that good stint in the Champions League, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to be the new Mikel or Essien or whatever it was that was meant to be when he came over." And I only remember having really one decent game. It was against Man City when I think Yaya Toure was still around. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was his first game, and he was injured. And he came on. Everyone thought we had a world beater on our hands, and then he bombed.
Irons, I think Alex might be in West Ham fan.
Big West Ham fan.
Cool. Good to know. Good to have you, Alex, as well. If you ain't, subscribe, bro. Like, share, do your thing. I appreciate that, bro. Stripbear says hit the like button if you haven't, please. And then we've got one more. Let's get one more in. Where do you rank Gilmour amongst the European players?
Tell you what, with Gilmour, he came to Chelsea with a lot of hype from Rangers, and we've spoken a lot about Lampard, if he's experienced and things. I think Gilmour's probably Lampard's best success story. Lampard really seems to be turning him into a good player. I think my perspective is Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, Hudson-Odoi, they were all good players going to turn really good. Gilmour looks like, in and amongst Chelsea, and especially under the Llama, specifically Frank Lampard, he's turning into a really good player. Amongst other European players, we haven't seen enough of him, but at the same time, there's not many youngsters who can play against Liverpool and other big clubs and look as comfortable as he did. So I think Gilmour should be ranked very highly and someone to keep an eye on. And I hope injury doesn't ruin his career like a lot of youngsters do get.
He's very talented. He's very good on the ball. He's very well balanced. He always looks forward. He does everything that I want him to do. I think that's the issue we've got at the moment with this formation. You need players like Gilmour that always look forward. And when you've got Jorginho playing, I feel like he always looks for the sideward pass, and it has to be like a 2-yard pass, and then he receives it back. It's very rarely you see Jorginho knock a long ball over the top. It just doesn't happen, or pass a ball in that opens up the midfield of the opponent and stuff like that. And that's what frustrates me with him, because when we bought him, everyone was like, oh, he's going to come in, he's going to dictate the play. He does dictate the play, but he dictates it with him and the defenders. He doesn't do anything else. Like, he doesn't do enough for me, and he frustrates me. He does, and he's slow on top of it as well, and it just it just has all the chemistry of things that you don't want for a midfielder when you think about it, because he can't catch up with people. And that's why probably Kante's there, because Kante can cover. The thing with Kante is he can cover the ball. He's probably one of the best at retaining the ball. It's the biggest problem with Kante, I think, sometimes is that he's not really the guy you want on the ball to pick up the perfect ball. But I guess you can't have like the best of both worlds, can you? In many ways.
I think with Kante, I think Kante is one of the most talented players of the last decade. I think he's an incredible footballer. I love him. But as he's getting older, he's not getting slower, but he's making more mistakes. You find him making more misplaced passes and things. So it's a little odd with that.
Yeah.
And I get your frustrations with Jorginho as well. He does try the long ball, but I don't think he tries it enough. And I think a lot of that's down to him, and also a lot of that maybe is down to teams realizing that, hey, if we sit back against Chelsea and Jorginho, what's he going to do? So,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly
I do get.
I think he's more of he's a player that you would play depending on who your opponent is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't play him against the Man City because he'd get overrun by De Bruyne and Sterling and people like that. If you're playing a team like Burnley that's just going to sit back and literally defend and camp themselves in their own half, then you want him there, just picking the ball up, spreading it about, getting us moving and things like that. But it is what it is. Alex, thank you for subbing, bro. Appreciate that. It's nice to have a second West Ham fan on here now, so it's not just Lanzi on his own. I haven't got a Jorginho agenda, Drogba 2012. It's not the case. You know that my views on this show about Jorginho. I just don't believe he should be starting. We've still got 15 people tuned in at the moment, which is great to have on. If Sarri placed Kante as a CDM instead of Jorginho, I think we would have conceded less goals.
Right. With Sarri, I think this one of the biggest things that I guess made me fall a little out of love with Chelsea. Not Sarri himself, but reaction. I think this is why I am a bit more like we should give Lampard time, because I don't think Sarri was given enough time. I think anyone who rewatches the Europa League final against Arsenal, they'll see Chelsea as close to the image as we thought they would be in attacking play as possible.
Yeah,
ball was moving fast. I think with Jorginho, again, I don't think you've got an agenda. You're making really good criticisms about him. I think with Jorginho he's a like you said, he's a bit like a team specific player. I do disagree in terms. I think he's great in teams where you want to control the ball. For example, against a City, maybe not a City because he can get overrun, but against a Tottenham or an Arsenal, he's great at retaining the ball and not letting a team where they are dangerous with the ball get it. He's a very safe player. I think that's the thing. And again, against the lower league teams, he's going to struggle because his line breaking passes are a bit more rare. Do you know what a perfect team might be? Actually, I was going to say Southampton. That's the thing. Jorginho on one hand against a team like Southampton, he'd be great. Every wrong ball in behind, a bit like Højbjerg and Kane with Son earlier in the season, he's picking that out. He's making goals. Every time they run against Jorginho, he's got the turning circle of a train, and it's a bit like you just check your watch and he hasn't turned over yet, and they're through on goal and they've scored. So yeah, he's very hot and cold. But in regards to that question, sorry about Kante at CDM.
Yeah,
it depends, because Sarri, the type of ball Sarri wanted to play was dominate the ball, don't let the other team touch it. And I think if you played Kante in that team, we've touched on he isn't as safe with as Jorginho with the ball. So it depends. Yeah, it depends. Go on.
No, go on, bro. Finish.
I was going to say, Kante, I think there was a lot of flack, actually. I think maybe Jeremy will agree that a lot of flack at the time. Why is Kante playing as a box to box? Why are we making this man go forward?
Yeah.
I think he's actually benefited from that. I remember, especially last season, where I think it was a great goal against Liverpool, where he weaved in about two players and scored.
Bang.
I don't think. Obviously, we can't count him to do that every game, but I think Sarri added a lot more to Kante's game than people appreciate. So I think he had the formation right. I just think, like Lampard, maybe he wasn't given enough time, but Sarri has a lot more credence to why he should be given time. Lampard, obviously, 1 year experience. Sarri, about 15 years ish. So I think
Yeah, and to finish off, Johnny Boy Blue says Kante / Gilmore pivot. potentially. I mean, I've not seen it. It could look quite tasty. I think it would work as well. They've both got an engine. They're both like running around on the ball, etc. So I'd love to see that, to be fair. But whether we see that, I don't know. Indiana's in the house. One of my boys. Love the show. Make sure you all go and smash the like button and sub. And he is right. But we are going to tie it up there. We're nearly hitting an hour. I mean, this hour's flown by, isn't it, Alex? To be fair, it's been a really good, really good show. Yeah, look, we're going to see more of Alex, hopefully, if he's got time for us moving forward. I know he's got a very busy schedule with everything he does and that, so it'd be nice to always get him in and talk how we have. This show, to be fair, has been made around him and us and talking about the whole knowledge of players, you know, because at the end of the day, it's good to know about the new players that are out of the Premier League. We talk a lot about the Premier League on this channel. We want to talk about things outside that, do you know what I mean, and understand these young players that are playing very well that could potentially pick up a move later on, if it's not now and in the next sort of upcoming years, to the Premier League and stuff like that. Alex, where can everyone find you, mate? Like, what's your socials? You want to shout them out?
Yeah, sure. Hey, if you all follow me at EuroExpert_ on Twitter, you'll find everything that I'm to do with. And yeah, I'd love to come back on the show, by the way. Absolutely brilliant. Loved every second of this. So you'll find me on here as well, hopefully a bit more often.
Yeah. Definitely. And yeah, guys, like I said, it was nice having you on it. I mean, 20 odd plus viewers at any one time was good. I know it's 4 o'clock and you're all probably rushing home from work or, you know, on the train or whatever, or in a car, hopefully not driving though. Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's good to have you in there and that. But we are going to tie it up. You can find me, Ads and Sophia in the description below. Our links are there as well. We've also got a Discord as well. So yeah, guys, get added onto the Discord. We're all in there talking about things. Maybe even Alex might add himself to the Discord on his phone, and you can ask him questions in that group as well. That's where all the viewers, me, Ads and Sophia will be, and you can all just jump in and ask questions off air as well. But guys, this was GNA TV. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you again very, very soon.
It's like it's playtime when it's free time. In the dance, they have